Today is our first part for our holiday ornament, and it is just going to involve cutting all of the fabric pieces out. What you will need for today's part is going to be your pattern pieces all cut out. You're going to need the fabric pieces, pins, and a pair of scissors. Just a quick little reminder to your elementary school days of cutting the circle out of the star. If you just fold it slightly and do a little snip, then you'll be able to get your scissors into that hole and cut that center out. If you want, you don't necessarily have to cut the circle out of the star. If you just want to leave them solid and have the centers showing on your ornament, you certainly may do that. But I'm going to do it with the holes cut out so that my bottom fabric is going to show through all of those layers. So I have my 3 pattern pieces cut out. Most of you have 2 of the same color, 1 of a different color in the large squares, and then you should have a small square. What we're going to do is we're going to cut 2 circles out of the 2 that are the same color. If you chose 4 different colors, that's fine too. You'll just have to decide which ones you want to be the base color and the back of your ornament. So I'm going to use this dark blue. And just like we've been doing with our other pattern pieces, you're just going to take your pin, go all the way through the layers, and then work that point back up. If you find that it's going to be a little easier to do it single thickness, you certainly can do that. You'll just have to cut the circles out twice. But I think I'm going to be okay with them stacked on top of each other. So you want to try to keep that pattern piece as smooth as possible. Since we're using printer paper, it's a little heavier, so it's might get a little wrinkled, but just smooth it out as best you can. And then you're going to cut around that circle. Just like we've been cutting our pattern pieces out, you do want to make sure that you try to keep that fabric on the table or on the counter as best as you can. You don't want to be holding it up like this. Okay, you want to try to keep it on the table. You can see I've kind of lifted a little bit because it just makes it a little bit easier to go around that circle. But I'm trying to keep it on the countertop as best I can. And that just helps to make sure that your cutting is as accurate as possible. So there's our first piece. We're going to do the same thing with our other ones. And with this, when you're doing your pins, I would suggest kind of doing it out towards the point. And you won't necessarily have to put a pin in each one. If you want to, you certainly can. But I think it'll be okay if we just do every other one. You just want to make sure that your pin is not hanging over the edge. So I'm going to be cutting out the outside portion first. So that's what I'm worrying about in terms of my pins. Obviously my pins are sticking out in the middle. But once I cut that outside portion out, then I can go back and reposition my pins. So the pattern pieces kind of have a slightly rounded edge on the points of the star. I'm just going to make it a sharp point rather than trying to do the little rounded edge. If you want to try to do a rounded edge, you certainly can do that. But I think it's easier just to do that point. All right, now that I have all of my star points cut out, like I said, I can reposition my pins, and I probably won't need to use quite as many, but I can reposition them around the outside of my star so that I'll be able to cut my circle out. Now in this case, you're probably going to have to lift it up a little bit so that we can again do our little snip. And then there's our second star. Now the final one obviously is a little more delicate, but again, you can still do the same thing, kind of have them go, those pins go out towards the points, just like that. And then I'll just reposition my pins just like I did before. Probably only need really 2 on this one since it's so small. Pull my other pins out. And then you can take the pins out of all of your pattern pieces. I noticed that I have a little piece right here that's kind of sticking out. So I'm just going to get rid of that kind of little fuzzy part. You certainly can iron this felt. Just keep it on a relatively low heat setting. But you can also see my piece of felt was pretty wrinkly and I didn't have any problem putting my pattern pieces on. And then I have all my pattern pieces ready for our stitching of our ornament. What I'd like you to do is once you have cut out all of your pieces, take a picture, post it to the Google Classroom.